Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm introduction. As you said, I'm from My Choices Foundation, and it's my privilege to represent the foundation and to speak with all of you here today. I would like you to meet Saidul Sheikh. He's a family man. He's a husband and a father of 5. He has 2 daughters and 3 sons. He comes from Kuldia village in the South 24 Parganas of West Bengal, the state in India with the highest rate of human trafficking. Its capital, Kolkata, is known as the breaking point for these girls who are trafficked into sexual exploitation. They are trafficked in from neighboring countries Nepal, Bangladesh, and the surrounding rural areas of the state of West Bengal and other states. And sex is sold so cheap in Kolkata that these girls aren't worth keeping there. So Kolkata is the breaking point. And if you're familiar with the issue of sex trafficking at all, you'll know that this cruel induction often involves starvation, torture, and gang rape. The breaking point, where they literally break girls into submission to accept their fate in sexual slavery. But let's go back to Saidul's village. In 2009, his village was wrecked by the cyclone Aila, as well as surrounding villages similarly affected. He and his wife rely on a government program to provide them with their employment. In recent years, they've had as little as 10 days of gainful employment in the entire year. So resources at home are unpredictable, and providing for the family of 7 is really difficult. In villages around Saidul's, and as well as his own, it's become normal to accept marriage offers for your daughter from men that you don't know from cities that can be far away. They look at this as a way to alleviate economic pressures at home and potentially and hopefully provide a better opportunity for their daughters. So when a trusted neighbor woman came to Saidul and recommended that he allow her to arrange a marriage for his 16-year-old daughter, Roxana, he was really happy. He thought it was his family's lucky break. I thought that Roxana would be happy and that she would have at least 2 meals a day, is what Saidul said about this opportunity. Unfortunately, we now know that that trusted neighbor woman is a confirmed trafficking broker. Women like her spend a great deal of time, energy, and resources gaining the trust of families like Saidul's, luring them into accepting opportunities for their daughters, unknowingly allowing their daughters to be trafficked. Traffickers are very good at what they do. They're so good that they run the world's 2nd largest and fastest growing criminal industry. It operates in the most remote rural parts of the world, and it has an efficient organizational structure that would make any of us jealous in our organizations. And they did not have to pay market researchers to figure out how to do their job. They understand their demographic extraordinarily well. Let me tell you what they know that makes them so good at what they do. They know that somewhere in rural India, there's a mother and a father really struggling to make ends meet, where economic stability is just not their reality. And they have a daughter whose marriage they're really worried about arranging, whose education they can't pay for, who they're probably even struggling to feed. More than likely, they've gone through a recent crop failure or something else is making them in particular vulnerable. They also know that there is extreme prejudice against the girl child, which is common in many areas of the world, but in particular in India. They also know that there's low risk perception. Because of shame and stigma, trafficking may be happening literally in my neighbor's home, and I will never hear the story because it is never told. They are too full of shame to actually share the story. So parents don't actually know what's happening, even if trafficking is so close to them. They also know, the traffickers also know, that there are extreme social expectations, in particular on fathers, who want to do the best that they can for their families, and who want to make the most of each opportunity that comes their way. There's also extreme poverty and scarcity, and this is the most important factor that provides the most pressure. All of this means that traffickers have a fairly easy job once they know their demographic this well. They know that these families are particularly susceptible to their lures, and that their best bet as traffickers is being dealers in hope, in false promises. The emotional costs of scarcity mean that fathers become almost obsessed with overcoming that scarcity, and they start to push aside factors that would otherwise weigh into their decision-making, and they begin to entertain high-risk behavior. Their daughter's safety becomes all too unimportant. And we had to partner with market researchers to figure some of this out. Traffickers are so good that every 3 minutes, that's how frequently a girl in India is sold into sexual exploitation. And only 1% of these girls are ever rescued. That means that 99% of the estimated 5 million minor-aged girls stuck in sexual exploitation in India never find a way out. And I'm sure you can relate to our feeling when we found that out and just not being okay with it. So we believe in David Batstone's idea of justice. So he said that seeing people drowning in a river and rescuing them, bringing them out, is compassion. But going upriver to find out what the problem is in the first place and to prevent people from falling in to begin with, that's justice. So when My Choices Foundation, we did a lot of research into figuring out the gaps in the approach to addressing trafficking in India. We decided we wanted to address prevention. So great. We decided we wanted to be in prevention of sex trafficking. Well, then what? Well, when we started out, we thought that we would run national campaigns to invoke outrage in people about trafficking. We knew we needed a strong emotion to galvanize people into action, and who wouldn't be outraged when they find out what's happening to India's daughters in our own backyard? But thank goodness we did not do that. If we had, we would have only added to the emotional costs of scarcity, which I spoke of earlier, essentially putting these families on tilt, making them unable to respond, adding to the problem that is the root cause of trafficking to begin with. So thank goodness we didn't do that. We started with why. We started with research. We partnered with the research agency Final Mile, as you've heard earlier, who employed learnings of neuroscience and behavioral economics to understand and then make very intuitive recommendations on how to understand and influence male behavior on both the supply and the demand side of human trafficking, and male behavior being very important. Now, if you're in the ESOMAR Congress today and you have not read last year's award-winning paper, then I obviously recommend that you do that. I'm going to only have a few minutes to take us through the recommendations that were made that stood out to us as the NGO and how we have now implemented them. So I'll take us through these very briefly. So first, the research recommended that we use positive message framing. So obviously, there went our message of outrage immediately, and completely avoid negative message framing. It also recommended that we, in their words, we portray useful information in an entertaining way. So the first pillar of our work is our Safe Village program, our grassroots prevention education program. And you'll see from the image, we use comic books as one of our core resources. Very much that entertaining way of telling useful information. It's also relevant to both adolescent, so school-age children, and illiterate or semi-literate adults. The next group of research recommendations said that we had to move the conversation nationally at the village level from silent to salient. And the way that it recommended that we do this is to use inspirational characters with celebrities and influencers. We were very fortunate to be able to do some of this. So you'll see from the screen, that is MS Dhoni, one of India's most famous cricketers and the former team captain. So he did a campaign with us, among other Indian cricketers, to respect and protect women. And the village adaptation, because that was obviously popular at the national level, but it must matter at the village. You'll see the comic book, where adolescent boys sign their name next to these famous cricketers to join the team and to choose to respect women and be vigilant for their safety. You'll also see the VR for Good logo. We've partnered with this program. We made the world's first VR documentary on sex trafficking. And if you find me later, I'll share with you more about that. Finally, the research recommended that we must highlight safe migration behaviors, not simply say that all migration is bad and so therefore be afraid of it. And the most important recommendation here was that we make it easy to report high-risk situations that would worry people. So our third pillar of action in preventing human trafficking, we have started India's very first national helpline to address trafficking. So far, we've handled over 11,000 calls in just a little over a year of this helpline being in operation. We support this in 5 languages, which are the languages that are key to the areas of grassroots operations that we do. And we're scaling this slowly to measure our grassroots operations to make sure we can handle this large volume of calls. And you'll see that we've conducted 63 rescues, but there's an asterisk there on purpose. These are preventative rescues, meaning we were able to intercept a child being trafficked before they reached the point of exploitation. I can't tell you how happy I am to share with you that Roxana Seidel's 16-year-old daughter did not remain trapped in that 99% of girls who never find a way out of sexual exploitation or slavery in India. In fact, I'm even more happy to tell you that she wasn't a part of the 1% to begin with. Roxana was never trafficked. Her father, Seidel, attended one of our Safe Village programs, heard the positive message framing that told him, we know that you're a good father. We know you're struggling, but you want to do the best for your daughters. He learned about how to identify the signs of trafficking and who a trafficker may be, and the ill effects of child marriage, and he decided not to send his daughter away. When he told the trafficker, who he thought he was his trusted neighbor, she persisted over many days trying to tell him that he was making the wrong decision. It was only when he threatened her with calling the Red Alert helpline that she decided to leave him alone, to pack up her bags and leave the village. We haven't been able to arrange an arrest yet, but we have been able to confirm that her actions have led to many girls going missing in different villages, and we're working on an active investigation. So this is what we believe is the power of market research in action that makes very intuitive recommendations. It obviously took innovation and extensive field knowledge from our side to make these recommendations matter in the field. But without the research, we would have still been screaming the message of outrage, which we know now would not have been effective, and Roxana wouldn't have been safe. So we believe that if people like you in your industry and field are on red alert with us, girls like Roxana will be safe. If you'd like to learn more, please do come find me. I'd also love to show you how to watch your VR film from your mobile phone in 360 format. Thank you very much, ESOMAR Foundation, to all of you for listening.